me an up-close and personal view. Welcome back to the JoAnne Powell Show. I am JoAnne. We're coming to you from the World Center of Broadcast Media, WCOBM, Hollywood. We've had a great discussion. This is Black History Month, and as a part of Black History Month, we have been taking a look at a story that is not as well known as some of the others out there. We are going to be talking about the Freedom March in Selma, and joining me now to talk about that is Joanna Jackson. At a young age, at the age of 5 years old, Joanna and her parents became a key component to the civil rights movement. Basically, their home became the cornerstone to this movement in Selma, Alabama. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and those that were a part of his movement dealing with the Freedom March in Selma made their home basically ground zero. So welcome again back to the show. And also the home, your childhood home, is now a museum, and you are the CEO of the foundation and the museum. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we were talking about, we found out that your parents and Dr. King and his wife met in Montgomery as a part of his ministry.
They met in Montgomery.
Okay, Montgomery. That's
through a relative of my mother's.
And from that, when it came to the movement, Dr. King asked your dad or your parents if it'd be okay if they could use your home as pretty much ground zero for the movement. And at the time, just doing a little history, we have some video kind of also that we can show of the home and what was going on in Selma at that time. Basically, if you were a black person, you could not vote in Selma. So that was the movement. People were going to try and register and vote, were being turned away. There were situations where there was a lot of violence. There were people who were killed for this movement. And Dr. King and his group of people, a lot of people that were key and instrumental to the civil rights movement, came to Selma to arrange this march to make a difference. And it actually led up to negotiations were happening at your house with President Johnson even for the voters registration, the Voters' Right Act of 1965. So take us back to the time. What was it like in your home? I mean, you had a lot of religious leaders, civil rights leaders, and world leaders that came in your home, and that was kind of commonplace for you at 5 years old when this is happening. What were you thinking, or what goes through a 5-year-old's mind at that point?
Well, I will share with both you and your audience. One day, a gentleman came to the front door, and of course I was not old enough or tall enough to open the front door, and I went scurrying to my mother saying, "Please let Santa Claus in. Please let Santa Claus in." And I did not realize that the person that I thought was Santa Claus was Archbishop Akarius, who had traveled from Greece. He was the Greek Orthodox bishop traveling to America to visit with Dr. King to give him counsel about the upcoming March on Voting Rights Act. And as you can imagine, so many different leaders came, and he was welcomed into the house, and it took someone about 30 to 45 minutes to convince to me that this person was not Santa Claus. Yeah, with all of his regalia.
Yes, and also he actually was marching with Dr. King in the Freedom March.
Yes.
And if you see him, he does have a long white beard. So as a 5-year-old, I could see how you might mistake, although he wasn't wearing exactly the same outfit, but he definitely had his outfit, and I could see how you might think that as a 5-year-old. What did your mom and dad say?
Well, they tried to convince me who he was. Of course, I had no clue as to an archbishop, and I also had no clue as to where Greece was. But it's interesting, now that I look back on it, what a movement Martin Luther King Jr., Uncle Martin, to me, galvanized. Here we are in a time looking at the possibility of walls and borders. And, you know, I can remember a time when, you know, this country welcomed everyone in search of justice and peace and freedom. That's what I learned as a young child. People coming together from all parts of this globe to ensure that we would be borderless, and that we would know no boundaries, and that people could be free to have a better life and to build bridges of understanding.
Now, there is a kind of a funny story in one of the bedrooms where Dr. King stayed. He had a kind of a meeting with a lot of key components, and they were all decided to have this meeting on the bed that he slept on. So there were all these men on the bed, and something interesting happened. Why don't you tell us that story?
Well, you know, in living in this house, Uncle Martin slept in just about in all of the beds in this home. But one particular evening, he was having a staff meeting in the front bedroom of the Jackson home. And there must have been 10 or 12 people in the room. And my mother was in another section of the home. And she heard this loud noise. And of course, the emergency plan always was to find me and take me to safe haven. Once she did that, then she was free to find out, you know, what the problem was. And she made her way to this bedroom, and when she opened the door, she found Uncle Martin and his brother A.D. King, as well as Ambassador Andrew Young, all on the floor. The bed had broken. There were so many people on the bed with Uncle Martin discussing a wide variety of things. And my mother peeped in this room, and then they erupted in laughter. And once she realized that no harm had come to anyone in the room, Uncle Martin looked at her and simply said, "Jean, I told them not to eat so many of your biscuits. Now look at what they've done. They've broken your bed." And my mother felt at that point that since there was so much joy in that room, and you know, so much seriousness was always going on in the home, she eventually erupted in laughter as well, and then proceeded to close the door, and the meeting resumed.
Now let's talk about the backup, the contingency plan, because during that time there were bomb threats, there were people that had ill will toward Dr. King, your home. So the contingency plan was something that was an important component. Tell us a little more information about what that plan was, because you had shared that with me before, and I think it's an important aspect of the story of when they heard that loud, like, boom or crashing sound. Your mom thought it may have been a bomb or something like that, or a shooting. What was she thinking? And tell us exactly what happened, because that story is pretty interesting.
Well, I don't think my parents really realized when they made the commitment to Dr. King that, he could, in fact, utilize the home, just what it meant in terms of danger for my parents and for me. But the plan simply was that if anything major happened to the home, such as a bombing or a shooting, then I would be taken to safe haven. And that plan involved, my mother had a relative here, her uncle, who owned a funeral home. And he would bring the hearse at a moment's notice behind our home, and then I would be put in a clothes basket, which people used quite frequently 50 years ago. And then a blanket would be put over the clothes basket. The clothes basket would then be put in the hearse, and then I would be taken to safe haven. And then, of course, the adults would have to deal and manage, with the fallout as best they could. I can tell your audience that, thankfully, this house has always had a halo around it. Nothing catastrophic ever happened during the time that Dr. King and Dr. Bunch and other world leaders were here.
When we come back, we're going to take a break. We're going to hear more about your story and your historic home in Selma, Alabama. You're watching the JoAnne Powell Show. We'll be right back.
If you are an adult that began college and has not finished your college degree, let me put it to you straight. If your lifestyle and your standard of living is not becoming to you, then you should be coming to us, Oakwood University Elite Program. We are the fast, flexible adult degree completion program for the busy adult, like you.
Register today. Go to oakwoodleap.com or call 256-726-7098. It's time to leap.
For years, people have trusted McKay's Family Mortuary. We're part of your community and we'll take care of the details. We offer a variety of memorial services, including sea scattering and cremation. According to the Federal Trade Commission, the average funeral cost is over $9,000. We have complete funeral chapel service starting at only $31.25, casket included. Direct cremation starting at only $9.95. Visit one of our 5 locations and meet our caring and diverse staff. McKay Family Mortuary. Let us be the shoulder to lean on.
Thanks to Oakwood University and the LEAP program, I have now a college degree. So to the Spanish-speaking members of this community who feel that the LEAP program is something you should consider, I would say, ánimo a la universidad. Considere el programa LEAP de Oakwood University.
Go to oakwoodleap.com or call 256-726-7098.
Seize the Day Scuba for your best scuba experience above and below the sea. You'll find friendly staff, experienced PADI certified instructors, and state-of-the-art scuba equipment and gear. Join our dive club and we'll help you plan memorable scuba excursions. Immerse yourself. Seize the Day Scuba, serving Southern California. Call 949-220-0500 to create your scuba experience.
When I first started into the program, yes, I had doubts. I was really impressed with Oakwood University, with the faculty and the staff and the student body. It was a really good experience, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who was thinking about going back and finishing their degree.
Register today. Go to oakwoodleap.com or call 256-726-7098.